Admiral Kethvar's battle group dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the asteroid field, expecting to find a small rebel outpost hiding among the rocks. Instead, his tactical officers reported sensor readings that made them double-check their instruments 3 times. The energy signatures they were detecting suggested a military installation that could challenge a Union fleet. The Admiral had 6 eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums, and right now, all of them were staring at displays that showed impossible things. Some of the asteroids had artificial gravity generators powerful enough to support cities. Weapon platforms were emerging from hiding places that his sensors had missed completely. This wasn't a primitive colony. This was a fortress built by people who understood modern warfare. Bo-Ra Park's cargo transport approached the Union fleet with humanity's final diplomatic message. Her ship looked like thousands of others that moved freight between the outer colonies, but her cargo bay was filled with advanced communication equipment and emergency escape pods. She knew this might be a one-way mission, but she wasn't afraid. When she requested communication with Admiral Kethvar, his first instinct was to destroy her small vessel before it could get close enough to cause problems. But something about the young human pilot made him curious enough to accept her transmission. He had never seen a species that looked so much like some Union races, but carried themselves with such quiet confidence. Bo-Ra appeared on his view screen looking calm and determined, despite facing a battle group that could destroy her ship with a single weapons burst. She introduced herself as a representative of the free human settlements and explained that her people knew exactly why the Union fleet had come to their territory. She offered Admiral Kethvar a simple choice: leave human space immediately, and her people would return to hiding as they had for over 2 centuries. Continue approaching with hostile intentions and learn why humanity had never surrendered to anyone, no matter how desperate the odds became. The Admiral studied the young human on his screen and felt a mixture of amusement and irritation. Her ship was smaller than one of his shuttles, and she was speaking to him like they were equals. The audacity was almost impressive, but it would not save her or her people from the consequences of resisting Union authority. He told Bo-Ra that she faced 12 capital ships with enough firepower to crack the asteroid she was hiding behind. If she surrendered immediately, he might allow some humans to survive as workers in Union space. Otherwise, he would demonstrate why resistance to galactic law always ended the same way. Bo-Ra's expression didn't change as she listened to his threats. When he finished, she calmly explained that he was looking at the situation backwards. He wasn't facing a small rebel colony hiding in the rocks. He was facing every human settlement in the galaxy, and they were all connected by something the Union had never understood. Humans chose to stand together because they were free to make that choice. They fought not because they hated their enemies, but because they loved their independence more than they feared death. That made them more dangerous than any weapon the Union had ever faced. At that moment, the impossible began happening. Ships started appearing around the Union fleet as if they were materializing out of empty space. Not just a few vessels, but dozens of them emerging from hyperspace in perfect coordination. The Admiral realized that somehow the humans had surrounded his entire battle group without being detected. Tae-Min Kim's voice came over the communication channel from New Seoul Station. He introduced the human defense fleet and explained that every ship Admiral Kethvar could see was crewed by volunteers who had chosen freedom over safety. They didn't fight because they wanted war, but because they refused to live as slaves. The battle that followed became the stuff of legend throughout the galaxy. The Union fleet was larger and more heavily armed, but the humans fought with tactics that no military academy had ever taught their students. They used the asteroid field like a 3-dimensional maze, appearing and disappearing with precision that made veteran commanders look like beginners. Captain Soo-Jin Yoon led fighter squadrons that moved through space like schools of deadly fish. They struck at crucial systems with surgical precision, then vanished before the Union gunners could target them. Every attack was perfectly coordinated and timed to cause maximum damage with minimum risk. Dr. Hye-Jin Lee coordinated defensive systems that turned simple asteroids into weapons of war. Rocks became missiles launched by hidden mass drivers. Solid stones sprouted weapon turrets that had been built into their structure over decades of patient work. The entire battlefield became humanity's ally. Throughout the fighting, Dong Wook Choi remained calm in the command center of New Seoul Station. He directed the battle with the wisdom of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Every human ship and weapon platform moved according to plans that had been refined over 2 centuries of preparation. Commander Rix faced the hardest choice of his military career when his patrol ship received orders to fire on the human settlements. Instead of obeying, he powered down his weapons and broadcast a message to both fleets. He announced that he had seen what the humans built in exile and would not be part of destroying the only truly free civilization he had ever encountered. Within hours, other Union ships began following his example. Their crews had witnessed something they had never imagined possible. An entire species that would rather die as free beings than live as slaves. The humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the right to exist on their own terms. Individual Union commanders began to realize that they were fighting people who had everything to lose and nothing to gain from surrender. Every human they faced knew that defeat meant the end of their way of life. That knowledge made them fight with desperate courage that no amount of training could match. Admiral Keithvar watched his supposedly overwhelming advantage disappear, ship by ship, as his fleet was outmaneuvered and outfought by enemies who refused to show fear even when facing impossible odds. His weapons were more powerful, but the humans were smarter, faster, and completely united in their determination. The battle ended, not with the destruction of either fleet, but with the Admiral's unconditional surrender. Surrounded by human ships that had appeared from everywhere and nowhere, he finally understood what he had stumbled into. This wasn't a rebellion against Union authority. This was a reminder that some species would never accept slavery no matter what threats they faced. Bo-Ra Park accepted the Union surrender in the same calm voice she had used to deliver humanity's ultimatum. She explained that her people didn't want to destroy the Union fleet. They just wanted to be left alone to live their lives in freedom. That had always been their only demand. Years later, historians throughout the galaxy would mark the Battle of New Seoul as the moment when everything changed. The Galactic Union was forced to reform itself based on principles of voluntary cooperation rather than forced compliance. Species that had been absorbed into the greater galactic community began demanding their own independence. Humanity had faced impossible odds without showing fear and reminded the universe that true strength comes not from conquest, but from the courage to remain free. They had proven that liberty was worth any price and that free people fighting for their homes could defeat any enemy, no matter how powerful. The hidden settlements came out of the shadows and took their place as equals among the stars. They had earned that place not through diplomacy or negotiation, but through their willingness to fight and die for something greater than themselves. The galaxy would never forget the lesson they taught about the power of freedom. President Oh Yeon-soo stood in front of cameras from all over Earth. Her hands were steady, but her eyes burned with fire. She looked directly into the camera and spoke words that would change everything. The human race bows to no one, she said. We have earned our place in this galaxy through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. If the Sovereign Empire thinks we are primitive, then let them try to prove it. The declaration of war shocked the entire galaxy. Most alien species thought humans would surely accept the offer, rather than fight the combined might of 12 ancient civilizations. On Trader's Moon, the gambling houses gave humanity 3 weeks at most before complete defeat. Some aliens felt sorry for humans, while others thought they were just being stupid. Admiral Kim Jae-ho was put in charge of defending Earth and all human colonies. He was a good military leader who had won many battles, but even he knew the truth. The Sovereign Empire had fleets that numbered in the millions of ships. Their technology had been improved over thousands of years. They had weapons that could destroy stars and shields that could bend reality itself. Humanity had brave soldiers and clever tactics, but bravery alone could not stop a star from being turned off. Human ships were fast and tough, but they were tiny compared to sovereign battlecruisers. Human weapons could hurt alien ships, but sovereign weapons could make entire planets disappear. The first attacks came without any warning at all. Sovereign fleets appeared at human colonies in 3 different star sectors at the same time. The farming world of New Busan was hit by energy beams that turned its green valleys into sheets of glass. The mining station at Proxima 7 just vanished, completely erased by weapons that folded space in on itself. Lieutenant Commander Nam Soo-jin was flying her patrol ship called Defiance when the attack on New Seoul began. Her small group of 12 ships faced a sovereign battle group of 300 huge vessels. The enemy ships moved like living things with hulls that shifted and flowed as they came forward. Their weapons fired beams of pure destruction that could cut through a moon like butter. Nam looked at her crew and saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. These were good people who had families back home. They knew they were going to die, but they were not going to run away. "All ships, this is Commander Nam," she broadcast on all channels. "We cannot win this fight, but we can make them pay for every meter. For humanity, for our families, for our right to exist as free people." The 12 human ships charged forward with their guns blazing defiance against impossible odds. The sovereign ships were so much bigger and stronger, but the humans were, fast and angry. They flew between the giant alien ships like angry wasps stinging a bear. Sometimes they managed to hurt the enemy before being destroyed. The battle lasted 4 long hours. When it was over, 11 human ships were burning wrecks floating in space. But the humans had managed to destroy 18 sovereign vessels in return. Commander Nam's ship was badly damaged but still fighting, and she broadcast the entire battle across the galaxy. The footage showed human crews fighting until their last breath. They never surrendered or begged for mercy. Even when their ships were breaking apart and their friends were dying, they kept shooting at the enemy. Alien viewers across the galaxy watched in amazement as humans chose death over slavery. Private Yoon Tai-yang was captured when his outpost was overrun by sovereign soldiers. The alien interrogators wanted information about human defenses and troop movements. They used pain machines and mind probes, but Yoon refused to talk. Instead, he spent his time teaching the aliens creative new insults in Korean language before they finally killed him. The sovereign commanders expected human colonies to surrender quickly after seeing such overwhelming displays of power. Instead, they found something they had not seen in 1,000 years. A species that refused to break no matter what happened to them. Human settlements that should have given up kept fighting. Even when they were outnumbered 100 to 1, they would not quit. Engineer Bang So-young became famous when she turned her mining platform into a giant bomb. When sovereign forces boarded the station, she triggered the fusion reactor to overload. The explosion took out an entire enemy task force and created a light show that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Her final message was simple. Tell them this is what happens when you call humans primitive. The war began to change in ways the sovereign empire did not expect. Humanity could not match their fleet strength in direct battles, but humans could strike where the enemy was not looking. Captain Ryu Wonho gathered a group of volunteers who used old cargo ships converted into weapons. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet because they appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before the enemy could fight back. These human raiders attacked sovereign supply lines and communication stations. They used hit-and-run tactics that the ancient aliens were not used to. The sovereign empire was used to fighting big formal battles between huge fleets. They did not know how to deal with small groups of humans who refused to follow the rules of war. Dr. Lee Young-hee was working in a secret laboratory hidden inside an asteroid called Haven Rock. She had been studying captured sovereign technology, trying to find weaknesses. Most human scientists said it was impossible, but Lee never gave up. She worked day and night taking apart alien devices and running thousands of tests. Finally, she made a discovery that changed everything. The sovereign energy shields were incredibly powerful and could stop almost any weapon. But they had one tiny weakness. They were vulnerable to a specific frequency of electromagnetic pulse. It was the same frequency that human electronics produced as background noise. Lee could hardly believe it at first. The mighty sovereign shields that could deflect planet-killing weapons were weak against simple human radio static. She tested it over and over to make sure. Then she sent the information to every human ship and base she could reach. The news spread through the human resistance like wildfire. Suddenly, human weapons that had seemed useless could punch through sovereign defenses. The massive alien ships that had been nearly impossible to hurt began falling to human fighters armed with modified mining equipment and civilian radios. The galaxy watched in shock as reports came in of human victories. The cargo ship Hammer of Seoul with a crew of 37 miners had somehow destroyed a sovereign dreadnought. A human medical ship called Mercy of Busan had fought off an entire enemy squadron while evacuating alien refugees from a war zone. But the Sovereign Empire was not impressed by these small victories. If humans wanted to fight like primitive rebels, they would be treated as such. Prime Sovereign Valdris was angry that his perfect war plan was being ruined by stubborn humans who would not follow the script. He issued a new decree that shocked even his own people. All human worlds would be sterilized completely. Every man, woman, and child would die. No human would be left alive anywhere in the galaxy. The insult to the Sovereign Empire would be answered with total genocide. The message was broadcast across all human settlements. There would be no more offers of slavery or service. Humanity had chosen to fight, and now they would pay the ultimate price for their defiance. The ancient rulers of the galaxy were done playing games with primitive upstarts who did not know their place. The Sovereign Empire expected humans to break after their threat of total genocide. Ancient alien generals had seen this pattern many times before. First came defiance, then came fear, then came surrender. They had been conquering species for thousands of years, and it always went the same way. But humans were different in ways they could not understand. Instead of surrender, the sovereign forces found something they had never encountered in 1,000 years of war. Human colonies that should have given up kept fighting even harder. Captured human soldiers refused to give information even when tortured. They spent their final moments teaching their alien captors creative new curse words in Korean. Private Yoon Tae-young had been captured defending a small outpost on the frontier world of New Daegu. The sovereign interrogators used every method. They knew to break him. Pain rays that felt like fire running through his veins. Mind probes that tried to tear thoughts from his brain. Drugs that were supposed to make him helpless and cooperative. But Yoon just looked at his captors and smiled. Instead of begging for mercy or giving away secrets, he started teaching them Korean swear words. He told them each phrase meant friendship and respect. The aliens carefully wrote down every word, not knowing they were learning to call themselves stupid, ugly creatures who smelled like rotten fish. Engineer Bang So-young was working on Kepler mining platform when the Sovereign fleet arrived. Her small crew of miners and technicians faced a massive alien task force with weapons that could crack planets. Most people would have surrendered immediately, but Bang had a different idea. She sent her crew to the escape pods and told them to get away fast. Then she went to the fusion reactor that powered the mining station. Bang was an expert with reactor systems, and she knew exactly how to make one very, very angry. She started removing safety systems and pushing the reactor beyond its limits. The Sovereign boarding parties found an empty station with no resistance at all. They thought the humans had run away like cowards. But as they spread through the facility looking for useful technology, Bang triggered her final surprise. The fusion reactor went critical and turned the entire mining platform into a miniature star. The explosion was visible from 3 different star systems. It vaporized the mining platform and took an entire Sovereign task force with it. Bang's final message was broadcast on all frequencies just before the blast. "Tell them this is what happens when you call humans primitive," she said with a smile in her voice. Stories like this spread across human space faster than the speed of light. Every colony, every outpost, every ship heard about people who chose to die fighting rather than live as slaves. It made humans angry and determined. If the Sovereign Empire wanted to kill them all, then humans would make sure it cost as much as possible. Captain Ryu Wonho gathered volunteers from across human space. He found cargo ship captains and freighter pilots who were tired of running and hiding. They took their old ships and modified them with whatever weapons they could find. Mining lasers became ship killers. Cargo holds were packed with explosives. Civilian radios were turned into shield breakers. They called themselves the Ghost Fleet because they appeared without warning, struck hard, and vanished before retaliation could come. Ryu led them in attacks on Sovereign supply lines and communication relays. The ancient aliens were used to fighting formal battles with rules and honor. They did not know how to deal with humans who refused to play fair. The Ghost Fleet would hide in asteroid fields and wait for Sovereign convoys to pass. Then, they would strike from multiple directions at once, confusing the enemy and causing maximum damage. When sovereign reinforcements arrived, they found only empty space and floating wreckage. Dr. Li Young-hee was the most wanted human in the galaxy. The Sovereign Empire had put a huge bounty on her head after her discovery about their shield weakness. She worked in a hidden laboratory built inside the asteroid Haven Rock, where nobody could find her. Her team of scientists worked around the clock developing new ways to hurt the seemingly invincible enemy. Li's breakthrough had already changed the war. Human weapons that had been useless against sovereign shields could now punch through their defenses. But she was not satisfied with just one discovery. She kept studying captured alien technology, looking for more weaknesses to exploit. Her laboratory was hidden deep inside the asteroid, surrounded by layers of rock and metal. The entrance was disguised to look like a natural cave. Inside was the most advanced research facility humans had ever built. Li had gathered the best minds from across human space to work on the problem of defeating enemies who seemed impossible to beat. The information from Li's lab spread through the human resistance network like wildfire. Suddenly, mining ships crewed by ordinary workers were destroying sovereign warships. The massive alien vessels that had seemed nearly invulnerable began falling to human fighters, armed with modified civilian equipment. The cargo hauler, Hammer of Soul, became famous across the galaxy. It was just an old freight ship with a crew of 37 miners and dock workers. But when they encountered a sovereign dreadnought near the Centauri system, they did not run away. Using Li's shield frequency data, they modified their mining equipment and attacked the giant enemy ship. The battle should have been over in seconds. The dreadnought was a kilometer long with enough firepower to glass a planet. The Hammer of Soul was a rust bucket held together with spare parts and determination. But the human crew knew something the aliens did not. They knew exactly how to make sovereign shields fail. The mining ship flew straight at the dreadnought, dodging massive energy beams and missile swarms. The crew used their rock-cutting lasers to slice through the alien shield generators. When the shields fell, they rammed their ship into the dreadnought's engine core and triggered every explosive they had on board. Both ships died in the explosion, but the impossible had happened. 37 human miners had destroyed a sovereign superweapon that was supposed to be unstoppable. The footage was broadcast across the galaxy, showing that even the mightiest alien ships could be beaten by brave humans with the right knowledge. The medical transport Mercy of Busan was another story that gave humans hope. Captain Park Seo-jin was evacuating alien refugees from a war zone when her ship was cornered by an entire sovereign raider squadron. The medical ship had no weapons and no armor. It was designed to save lives, not fight wars, but Park refused to surrender even when the enemy offered to let her go if she abandoned the alien refugees. She used every trick she knew to keep her ship flying while sovereign fighters swarmed around her. The medical crew worked frantically to treat wounded aliens while energy beams exploded around them. For 6 hours, the Mercy of Busan dodged and weaved through enemy fire. Park used the ship's medical scanners to detect incoming missiles and her emergency thrusters to avoid destruction. When the ship's shields failed, the crew used fire extinguishers and emergency oxygen to confuse enemy targeting systems. Finally, Ghost Fleet reinforcements arrived and drove off the sovereign raiders. The Mercy of Busan had saved over 200 alien refugees, including women and children, from a dozen different species. The aliens could not believe that humans had risked their lives to save people who were not even the same species. But the Sovereign Empire was growing tired of these small human victories. Every day brought new reports of impossible defeats and embarrassing losses. Ships that should have been invincible were being destroyed by converted garbage haulers. Ancient warriors were being outsmarted by primitive humans who barely knew how to fly in space. Prime Sovereign Valdris called an emergency meeting of the Empire Council. The ancient alien leaders gathered in their crystal palace to discuss the human problem. They had expected quick victory followed by easy conquest. Instead, they were facing a species that seemed to get stronger and more dangerous every time it was hurt. Some council members suggested offering humans better terms for surrender. Maybe slavery was too harsh for such a stubborn species. But Valdris was beyond reason now. The humans had embarrassed the Sovereign Empire in front of the entire galaxy. Ancient alien races were starting to question whether the Empire was still strong enough to rule. If humans wanted to fight like animals, then they would be exterminated like vermin. No human world would be spared. Every colony, every outpost, every ship would be hunted down and destroyed. The galaxy would learn what happened to species that dared to defy their rightful masters. The order went out to every sovereign fleet commander. No mercy, no prisoners, no survivors. Humanity would be wiped from the stars completely. The ultimate insult would receive the ultimate punishment. The ancient rulers of the galaxy would show everyone what happened to upstarts who forgot their place in the cosmic order. The sovereign armada that approached Earth was the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. Over 2 million ships ranging from small destroyers to massive planet-killing dreadnoughts entered the Sol system in perfect formation. Their commander, War Sovereign Nexus, had personally overseen the extinction of 17 different species that had dared to defy the Empire. Admiral Kim Jae-ho stood on the command bridge of Earth Station Alpha, watching the enemy fleet approach. On his tactical displays, the numbers were impossible to fight against. Humanity had managed to gather every available ship, calling in favors from the few alien allies who still supported them. They had 30,000 vessels total, ranging from massive battleships to civilian transports armed with mining lasers. It was the entire human fleet, everything humanity could put into space. Every ship that could fly and every weapon that could fire had been brought to defend their homeworld. But against 2 million enemy vessels, it seemed like throwing stones at a hurricane. "This is Communications Officer Jin Haiwan, Admiral," she reported from her station. "Incoming transmission from the Sovereign flagship." Admiral Kim nodded, and the main screen filled with the crystalline features of War Sovereign Nexus. The alien commander looked like he was carved from living ice, with glowing eyes that held no warmth or mercy. Humans of Earth Nexus spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "You have shown admirable persistence, but this ends now. Surrender immediately, and some of you may be permitted to live as labor specimens in our research facilities. Continue this pointless resistance and we will turn your world to ash and scatter your species to the void." Admiral Kim looked around the bridge at his crew. He saw Lieutenant Park DeHai at the weapons station, barely 22 years old, with hands that stayed steady on the controls despite knowing she would probably die today. He saw Chief Engineer Moon Byung-ho, who had worked 36 hours, straight preparing Earth's defenses without stopping for rest. These people, all of them, would die in the next few hours. But they would die as free human beings, not as slaves or specimens. Admiral Kim turned back to face the alien commander on the screen, and his voice was calm when he spoke. "War Sovereign Nexus," he said, "I have a counteroffer for you. Leave our system now and we will let some of your ships survive the day. You have 1 minute to decide." The alien's laugh was like the sound of glaciers breaking apart. He had heard many species make brave speeches before they died. "Amusing," he said to his crew. "Begin the bombardment. Show these primitives the price of defying gods." The battle for Earth began with light brighter than a newborn star. Sovereign ships fired energy beams that could split continents, while human forces scattered to avoid the devastating opening salvo. But humans had learned many lessons in 3 years of war, and they no longer fought the way aliens expected. Captain An Sang-min led his destroyer squadron through the enemy formation like a school of fish swimming through a forest of giants. His ships were too small and fast to be easily targeted by the massive sovereign weapons. They darted between the huge enemy vessels, striking at weak points, and then vanishing before return fire could find them. Captain Shin Min-jung commanded the converted cargo hauler Spirit of Incheon. Her ship had been a simple freight carrier before the war, but now its cargo holds were packed with every explosive device her crew could fit inside. She guided her vessel through the chaos of battle, looking for the perfect target to ram. Earth's orbital defenses roared to life all at once. The planet's magnetic field had been turned into a weapon, creating electromagnetic storms that interfered with sovereign sensors and communications. Hidden missile batteries throughout the asteroid belt launched waves of fusion warheads at the advancing enemy fleet. Dr. Lee Young-hee's discoveries had been built into every human weapon system. The frequency that could penetrate sovereign shields was broadcast from transmitters all across the solar system. For the first time in the war, human weapons were working at full effectiveness against their ancient enemies. But even with every advantage humanity could gain, the odds were still overwhelming. The sovereign empire had millions of ships and weapons that could destroy planets. They had been perfecting the art of war for thousands of years while humans had barely learned to travel between stars. Lieutenant Park DeHai fired her ship's main guns at a sovereign battle cruiser and watched her energy beams punch through its shields. The alien ship staggered under the impact, and she felt a moment of fierce joy. Then return fire from a dozen enemy ships turned her destroyer into scrap metal, and her joy became eternal silence. For 6 long hours, the outcome remained in doubt. Human ships fought with desperate fury that impressed even their enemies. When Captain Shin's cargo hauler was crippled by enemy fire, her crew manually guided it into the command bridge of a sovereign battlecruiser. When Lieutenant Park's weapon systems failed, she used her ship's engines as a ramming weapon. Chief Engineer Moon worked frantically to keep Earth's shields operating while enemy fire rained down like burning stars. The orbital defense network was taking massive damage, but he refused to let it fail. His engineering crews worked in spaces filled with radiation and toxic gases to repair systems as fast as they broke, but slowly, inevitably, the human defensive line began to crack. Too many enemy ships, too much firepower concentrated in one place. The Sovereign Armada had enough weapons to sterilize 100 worlds, and they were all focused on destroying humanity's birthplace. Earth's shields flickered and began to fail, as the power stations that fed them were destroyed one by one. The first bombardment beams reached the planet's surface, turning cities into glass and oceans into steam. Humanity's homeworld started to burn under weapons that could crack the crust of planets. War Sovereign Nexus watched from his flagship as human resistance crumbled around him. The primitive species had fought better than expected, but the outcome had never been in doubt. Their homeworld was already burning, and their fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. In a few more hours, there would be no humans left alive anywhere in the solar system. The galaxy would see what happened to species that dared to challenge the rightful rulers of the stars. Other young races would learn the lesson and submit properly when offered the chance to serve. Then something unexpected happened that changed everything. Ships began appearing at the edge of the solar system, but they were not sovereign reinforcements. Alien species that humanity had saved over the years were arriving to help defend Earth. The Nala brought their small, but incredibly fast scout ships. The crystalline beings from Vega offered their advanced energy shields. Even species that had remained neutral throughout the war sent whatever help they could spare. They came because humans had saved their worlds when nobody else would help. Commander Lee Sora found herself leading an impromptu fleet of 200 alien ships against a sovereign battle group. Most of her allies had never fought in space combat before, but they had come anyway. They remembered human soldiers dying to protect alien children, and they could not stand by while humanity burned. A Nala pilot named Click Whistle sacrificed his ship to save Lee's damaged vessel. His final transmission was simple but powerful. "Humans saved our world," he said, "now we save theirs." His ship exploded against the hull of a sovereign destroyer, taking both vessels into fiery death. But even with alien help, the battle was still being lost. Earth's cities were burning ruins, and its orbital stations were falling one by one. The human fleet was down to less than 5,000 ships and falling fast. Victory for the Sovereign Empire was only minutes away. That was when Dr. Lee Young-hee made her final and most important breakthrough. Deep in her hidden laboratory on Haven Rock, she had been working on something that seemed impossible, a way to turn the Sovereign Empire's greatest strength against them. Their ships were all connected through a quantum communication network that allowed instant coordination across the entire galaxy. Dr. Lee had found a way to hack that network and turn their perfect coordination into chaos. It would only work for a few minutes, but those minutes might be enough. "This is Dr. Lee Young-hee. To all human forces," her voice reached every surviving ship in the system. "I am uploading a virus into the Sovereign Command Network. When it activates, their ships will lose coordination for exactly 17 minutes. That is your window. Make it count for everything we are worth." The virus spread through the Sovereign network faster than light itself. Suddenly, the precise formations that had made their fleet invincible dissolved into complete chaos. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fired at random targets, including their own allies. Admiral Kim seized the moment that might be humanity's last chance. All ships, all allies, this is Admiral Kim, he broadcast to every vessel still fighting. This is our chance to show them what primitives can do when they fight for their home. Target the command vessels first and hit them with everything we have. Captain Kang Hyo-jin led the final charge in his battered cruiser Taekwondo. Its hull was scarred by dozens of battles and half its systems were offline, but it could still fly and fight. Behind him came every surviving human ship and their alien allies racing toward the heart of the sovereign fleet. The battle cry that echoed across the communication channels was simple but filled with 3 years of the virus Dr. Lee Young-hee had created, spread through the sovereign quantum network like wildfire, consuming data pathways and communication channels. For exactly 17 minutes, the most organized military force in galactic history became a confused mess of ships crashing into each other and firing at random targets. Captain Kang Hyo-jin led the desperate charge toward the heart of the enemy fleet. His cruiser Taekwondo was held together by spare parts and stubborn determination, but it could still fly and its weapons could still fire. Behind him came every surviving human ship and their alien allies in one final desperate attack. The fighting became brutal and close range as human ships dove into the chaos of the sovereign formation. Ships fought like ancient warriors with swords, using ramming attacks and boarding actions instead of long-range bombardment. The tactical displays showed a swirling mass of vessels locked in deadly combat with explosions lighting up space like fireworks. Private Song Min-woo was part of a boarding party that fought its way onto a sovereign destroyer. The alien corridors were filled with strange atmosphere that burned his lungs, but he kept moving forward with his plasma rifle blazing. His squad fought through rooms filled with crystalline control panels and energy conduits that sparked with alien electricity. The sovereign crew fought back with weapons that fired bolts of pure energy and blades made from hardened light. But humans had learned to adapt to alien technology during 3 years of war. Song and his team used captured sovereign equipment against its original owners, fighting room by room through the enemy ship. Meanwhile, in space, the battle raged with incredible fury. Human pilots flew their ships beyond safe limits, pushing engines and weapons past their breaking points. Captain Park Ji-won guided her damaged fighter through a cloud of debris to strike at a sovereign command ship. Her engines were failing and her weapons were almost empty, but she refused to give up. The 17 minutes of chaos were almost over. Already some sovereign ships were restoring communication with their command network. The perfect coordination that made their fleet so deadly was beginning to return. War Sovereign Nexus screamed orders at his technicians to restore full control as quickly as possible. Admiral Kim watched the tactical display and saw the window of opportunity closing fast. His forces had managed to destroy hundreds of enemy ships during the confusion, but thousands more remained. When the sovereign network came back online, the human fleet would be crushed by overwhelming firepower. That was when Commander Lee So-ra made a decision that changed the course of the battle. Her mixed fleet of human and alien ships was positioned near the sovereign flagship, where War Sovereign Nexus commanded the entire armada. If she could take out the enemy commander, the virus might have more time to cause damage. All ships, this is Commander Lee, she broadcast to her small fleet. We are going to ram the flagship. Anyone who wants to live through this should find a different target. But anyone who wants to make sure these ancient bullies remember humanity should follow me into hell. Her cargo ship Iron Will of Busan had been converted into a flying bomb packed with every explosive her crew could find. Behind her came ships from a dozen different alien species, all of them volunteers who had chosen to die rather than watch.